David.
Yeah, we sent a sort of Facebook out.
I see Barbara Lansbury, Murder She Wrote, is up there, right?
That was Angela, that was her sister.
That was her sister. She says, "Hi guys, hope you have not been worried." And then she says, "Working too hard." I've been working on the railroad. Going
right, that's Facebook sorted out, so we'll get their comments coming through shortly. That's it been made public. Right, David, before we get started today, I want to give a wee plug to an up-and-coming event for all the footy fans out there. So I'll stick it up on the screen. And then I'll flip across to Facebook so I can see it. And it's a Unite the Clans event. John Plot's organising it. And John did the Dance for Freedom thing. If you've not seen it, look it up on YouTube. Absolutely fantastic wee song. And anyway, John's a major, as well as being an independent supporter, a major football fan. And he's put together a festival of football on Sunday the 20th of August at New Douglas Park in Hamilton, the home of Hamilton Academic Football Club, where an Old Firm select will play a Scottish select, and there will also be a couple of ladies teams playing a game in honour of the World Cup a final that's played that weekend. So if you're a football fan, you can get more information by calling 0746 32 19206. Alternatively, jump onto my Facebook page. You'll see the advert there and get the phone number there. The event starts at 2 p.m. on the 20th of August. So if you're a football fan, go along. Now, John's an absolutely fantastic fella. So if you see him, tell him I'll say hello. Okay.
I remember at one time I actually hired a golf course just outside London at Heathrow, right? And the guy did the job of actually booking the after dinner speaker, booked Jeff Hurst. And the talk went on for an hour and a half, and he talked about the closing 5 minutes of the 1966 World Cup in England. What like that.
That's the Facebook comment starting to come through now.
Right.
Hello, Francis. I see a lot of the usual suspects are there. And I see John's on.
The last start. The last. And Tories don't get tasered. I love that name. I really do.
There's a lot of the usual folk there. Now, Independence Live Radio is going to be putting this one out on all David, so we need to cut down the swearing to save on the editing, you know. And we can't mention a specific virus, but what we have to tell you is a new strain out there, and this specific virus has been kicking around for the last couple of years. So be careful, folks, especially if you're a certain age group. Okay. Right.
Understand this. If we did mention it, we'd lose the channel. That's how much
we can't name the specific virus. Yeah. All right. We can't even name the variant. Anyway, so we're up at 100 mark, David. So let's get this show on the road. It's the Two Davies, the 17th of the 8th, 2023. Happy Jerry.
I take it you just froze up there because the computer you've got is a Celtic supporter and it didn't like using the word Jers.
I thought we'd lost the channel there for mentioning the virus. Sorry about that. Happy Jers Day, David.
That was somebody at YouTube Central going, what?
Anyway, happy Jers Day.
Happy Jers Day. If you're a Celtic supporter, it's not a good day of the day at all.
Anyway, yesterday was the release of the annual bollocks, where we have the figures that were made up by John Idiot back in the 90s to make Scotland look like the poor relative. And anyway, they came out yesterday, and hey, the unionists weren't happy as apparently Scotland's deficits come down because of an increase in oil and gas prices. It's not 23.7 billion of a deficit anymore, it's 19.1. Funny thing was, oil revenues went up by 9 billion now. 23.7, 19.1.
I need my calculator for this one. Do you know, honestly, I can't work it out myself.
And
You know,
of course, as we know, the Jers is made up of 86 approximations. And whisky revenues are not attributed to Scotland at all. So there another 5 billion if Scotland was independent, you could take up that so-called deficit. But as we know, Scotland doesn't have a deficit. We don't run a deficit.
Yeah, if you figure there's a £20 bottle of whiskey, there's 15 quid of blooming money goes to the treasury off that. You know, come on, think about it.
Think of all that stuff. Thanks, Stephen. Thanks, Stephen Bain. And he's put up a super sticker. And he's made a nice donation of £5. Thank you very much, sir.
Here's lying on side. I can't see. Oh, yeah, I see it. Raising his arm while saying, "How's it going?"
Aye.
Well, it's going all right at the moment.
So the annual stupidity came out yesterday, and of course the unionists are no chuffed because the deficit's shrinking. Whereas last year they were jumping up and down and you're too bankrupt and all that crap. We know they're absolute nonsense. That's why we're not going to give them the crap that I used to do each year. We used to break the figures down.
But the really laughable phenomena is that last year they went, got you, Jer says this. This year, it's saying a wee bit of good news. We don't know if it's good news because it's a load of piffle, right? But it's a wee bit of good news coming out. And they're going, this is not, can't be right. Gers can't be right. And I'm saying,
Gers on the right. We know they're on the right. They're crap, as Richard Murphy calls them.
What I'm saying to them is, you can't have it both ways, guys.
No, they can't have it both ways.
You know, it doesn't work out, does it?
Anyway, the Gers figures came out yesterday, and even the BBC here in Scotland sort of distanced themselves from them. And there was a section as does the Gers reflect how an independent Scotland would look? And of course, the answer the BBC put out themselves is no. Only reflects how we are in this union under this specific measurement.
Yahtzee, got you. BBC. For years you've been saying Gers is the absolute solid, written in tablets of stone, and it's produced by the Scottish Government. Is it? It's produced by the Scottish Government using UK Treasury figures. So
anyway, Kate Forbes bouncing all over the place.
Hang on, David. If the data is shite coming out of the UK Treasury, if it's a work of creative accounting, then the figures that are picked up and made and tabulated for Gers are shite, then it's going to be shite. Okay.
That's exactly right. Now, I mean, if you want to get an example of how poor the Gers are, right? Since the 2016 Smith Commission and the supposed alleged transfers of new powers and new fiscal powers, they've been arguing over how much they're supposed to give 11% of art paid in Scotland back. But since then, this is now 2023, and they still haven't worked out how much VAT Scotland actually pays to be able to give us 11% back. So we get an approximation. That's what the Gers are. An approximation of a situation that we find ourselves in where 70% of tax is controlled in London and 40% of spend is controlled in London.
How's about for fun?
The 40% they talk about isn't the actual figure of 40%. It's 40% of reserved matters, like pensions, benefits, that sort of thing.
How's about fun? We run a crowdfunder for batteries for the UK Treasury calculator.
It's an abacus they've got. They haven't advanced to bloody calculators. Although some would argue the abacus is a wee bit more accurate. But there's also some out there that would argue that the Earth is flat.
Yep.
Right. So there isn't much more to say about the Gers, is there?
Yeah.
If anybody wants to know the truth about the
Gers is a statistics publication which is prepared by the Scottish Government officials independently of ministers. Right. So in other words, what they're saying is civil servants that produce it, right? Which is right.
He asked for figures for Westminster.
It sets out revenues raised in Scotland, both from devolved and reserved taxation and public spending on behalf of Scotland. The difference is called the net fiscal balance, and often referred to as the deficit. Well, no, it'll either be a surplus or a deficit, depending on which way it goes, right? The statistics have formed a key battleground in the debate on the fiscal sustainability of an independent Scotland.
No, they haven't. They've never. Nobody's ever taken them serious.
I can assure you, Scotland has 85% of all the natural resources of the United Kingdom. That is just fact. That is real.
David. But what's more interesting about that is, year on year, Richard Murphy, Professor Richard Murphy, does the same thing as I used to do. I used to compare the figures in the JERS against the regional figures for HMRC and do all that stupid stuff. Well, Richard Murphy still does that annually and then craps over the JERS figures. I've stopped doing it because it's just everybody now knows that JERS is crap.
Yeah. No, but the unionists are going out wholeheartedly this year to knock the JERS figures down.
Rubbish them themselves. I mean, Kate Forbes.
They have to rubbish them because it's showing an increase in our revenue and therefore a reduction in the deficit.
But as we know, we don't have a deficit. We're not allowed to run a deficit. By law, the Scottish Parliament has to have a balanced budget. All the debt is actually issued from the Treasury in London and is owned, solely owned by the Treasury of London. You get right down here, Scotland hasn't had any debt for 300 odd years. In fact, for 300 odd years, Scotland has only contributed to the UK coffers. And when it comes to that divorce, then that will be taken into consideration when it comes to any deficit we agree to take. And as over the last 40 years, we've contributed almost £440 billion in tax revenues from North Sea oil and gas. That will be taken away from any share of the debt. So, as Professor Murphy points out, taking into consideration other things like revenue from whisky and revenue from import-export taxes, which will all be deducted to that so-called deficit, Professor Murphy did the calculation and says, I think England's going to owe Scotland money. So it's generally agreed by the financial experts down that road, as is normally the case when it comes to secession, that the state that secedes from the bigger state walks away debt-free and with all the infrastructure within its borders in its hands. Mm-hmm. That's generally how it works. And I've seen somebody put up what currency you're going to use in the comments last week again, David. These people daft. So just to explain it for people who don't quite understand this, 30 years ago, the Czechoslovakia is split up into two states, the Czech Republic and Slovakia. Now, and the Czech Republic already had the central bank and currency. Within 3 months, the Slovakians had the central bank up and running and a currency floating. Within 18 months, the whole deal was done and dusted. Mm-hmm. Within 10 years, the balance of trade between the two of them started to level out. And after 25 years, the balance of trade with both of them was towards the EU and no longer each other.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, I mean, this also
might think that we're stupid.
Yeah, this also cuts into the argument that unionists have got about England being Scotland's biggest customer. It is not. The stuff that goes down to England quite often carries on and goes out of the country. And people count that movement of goods and services as being something that we do for England. What a load of nonsense. What a load of nonsense.
Of course it's nonsense. But as I say, just so that people are aware of this, a central bank can be set up very, very quickly and a currency floated very quickly. And the rest of the world will accept it. Mm-hmm. Simple as that. Mm-hmm. Because if they want to buy your goods, then you're going to take their currency. And if you're going to buy their goods, they're going to take your currency. Yeah. Yeah. That's how it works. So when they ask what currency we're going to use last, what currency are you going to buy our oil and gas in? What currency are you going to buy your food and drink in? What currency are you going to buy your manufacturing goods in? It's as simple as that.
I think in actual fact, we might be in a situation where the Bank of International Settlement brings in the central bank digital currency, and therefore that's what people will be striving to get away from. If we have a newly independent Scottish government, one would hope that they will set up a central bank and a currency.
Well, that's the point that Job Thompson's just made in the comments. But as I say, currencies are not a hard thing to set up.
Yeah,
they're not a hard thing to float. We've seen people ask me that question. What currency are you going to use? How are you going to do it? Central bank, set of banking regulations, buy a bloody big printing press. I read my bloody paper, and off we bloody well go.
Yep.
You know.
Yep.
Right, let's move on to subject number 2. We spent too much time on Happy Year's Day. It was a Happy Year's Day. As I say, I used to love doing it, but you know. Anyway, I mean, apparently a clever bit of a promotion for the Alpha Party, as the press announces to us all that Mr. Salmon is to address the Centre for United Nations Studies on the road to independence. And now that sounds all very good and important, doesn't it? But there's a wee abit here, and this is where I don't know what's going on. Hi, Dylan. Yeah, I'll put this up, and when I'm finished with saying what I'm saying, I'll read it out, Dylan. Okay. Now, it was a clever bit of marketing, but especially when you read that and see the Centre for United Nations Studies, and you think, oh, United Nations, Alex taking it.
He's booking a flight for New York, and nobody goes, and he comes out on the big stage in front of the podium, thousands of people there, the rest of it. But what's actually going to happen, David?
What's going to happen is Alex been paid a fee to go to a private school, what they call an independent university in Buckingham, to give a lecture to this Centre of UN Studies, which is actually a think tank at the Independent University of Buckingham. What's interesting about the word independent when it comes to the University of Buckingham, it means private school. So Mr. Salmon is being paid to go and give a lecture to a bunch of toffs at a think tank in England. You know, so the piece of a clever piece of marketing that was put out there by the Alpha Party to make this sound all very important and Mr. Salmon still being relevant in public life turned out to be a lot of tips.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing though. What a stupid thing to do. Why oversell something like that when people are ultimately going to find out, oh, it's full of crap?
Right, and we've got Dylan here telling us that thanks, Dylan, for your contribution, son. It's very generous of you. It just shows you how bad the unionists are crapping themselves. Well, you know, the annual jersey is normally something they like to celebrate, Dylan. They just had nothing to celebrate this time. So a clever bit of marketing by the Alpha Party, and but people have to be aware that this very important sounding a Centre for United Nations Studies is actually just a think tank and a private university, a private college.
Yeah.
You know, that's all it is. And Mr. Salmon will get paid to go and give a lecture to these toffee kids on Scotland's route to independence, which of course will help these toffee kids who are going into public office stay right against Scottish independence.
Can you explain something to me, Davey? It mentions the actual blurb mentions United Nations. Where does that come from? Where does that come
from? It's because this particular think tank studies the United Nations. It's not actually part of the United Nations.
So it's just a play on the name.
It's called the Centre for United Nations Studies. That means that this particular part of that university stroke college, private university stroke college, studies what's going on at the university.
In other words, they're trying to make gold out of cotton wool.
Aye. And that's exactly what the Alpha Party was doing when they were getting advertising for us. Because people thought that Mr. Salmon was taking the case to the United Nations. You know, he's going to a private college where he's probably being paid to talk to these toffs about the road to independence, so that these toffs, when they enter public office, can put blocks on the road to independence. Yeah. Mental stuff. So I just thought I'd clear that one up because it was a clever bit of marketing by the Alpha Party, but it was also misleading.
Yeah, a bit naff. Sorry to say it, but a bit naff.
But as I say, it was a clever bit of marketing, David.
A clever
bit man in the street.
Yeah, hang on, a clever bit of marketing is something that takes something that's true and pushes it further up than maybe it's getting at the moment, right? A bad bit of marketing is where they take something that's patently untrue and will be found out subsequently to be a load of whatever, right? And puts it out there. That's
they made it sound important. They're not going to get down on them because, let's face it, they need attention. Yeah. And unless it's to slag the SNP, then they'll not get any attention from the mainstream media. They are a young party, David, so they're going to try whatever they can.
Yeah.
But the whole point of it, the whole point is that you know, it was all about marketing Mr. Salmond as advancing the cause of independence when he's actually irrelevant to it.
He is an intelligent man, and there's no doubt about that. But he seems to be batting for the other team quite often.
No, I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to say that. I'm saying they took advantage in the name of this small college within this private university.
Anyway, what about the junior doctors? Oh, he's gone again. Oh, he's back.
You were going on. You're back and all. So it was to make Mr. Salmond relevant in the debate. They're shouting about wanting a coalition of yesers and things like that. You only get into that sort of coalition when the person asking to get into a coalition with you is of relevance to your cause.
Can we get on with the next one? Junior doctors.
Yes, junior doctors in Scotland accept 12.4% pay increase. So no industrial action from the junior doctors in NHS Scotland, which is great. Great news.
Strange that, isn't it?
Aye.
Yeah, it just seems to be that you know, constantly, the Tories are in trouble all the time. The NHS and the doctors going, come on, just pay us what we're due, right? I saw some of the basic wages of junior doctors, and I went, you're kidding. That's ridiculous. You know, why are they getting paid such a small amount? These people have got people's lives in their hands, and they're getting paid rubbish wages, right? We seem to be able to sort it out, and the Tories cannot. It's just the Tories have got a wee chip on their shoulder and go, no, we're not giving in to MD.
Well, let's put it this way: the British state were only chuffed about the settlement up here in Scotland, so the BBC in Scotland only gave it a 15-second blurb. So that the people in Scotland don't realise that the junior doctors here are not going in strike when they hear about strikes in NHS England.
Yeah.
So that they can push the narrative that NHS Scotland is doing worse than NHS England, but we know implicitly that it's doing better.
To be honest with you, I'm surprised the BBC gave it as much as 15 seconds.
Aye, well, you know, but it's good that they've settled because although the unionists don't want to hear this, down that road waiting lists are getting bigger and bigger. Up here, because of policies put in place by the now First Minister, waiting lists are starting to shrink.
And who was it the other week there said, oh, we're going to come up and we're going to sort out the waiting list for Scotland?
The SNP waiting list, of course. That was partly. And we also found out by Byline News that the reported CDC centres, critical diagnosis centres that they're supposed to set up and put in the implication of post across England, 114 of them. Well, it looks as if only about 59 of them actually exist.
Yeah, well, it's also, you could say, what about the 40 hospitals that were supposed to be going up?
40 hospitals. They were getting wards of like a paint and calling it a new hospital. Meanwhile, the outside of the hospital is getting held up with agro props, you know.
One of the things that we'll be talking about maybe later on is the 900 beds that Rishi Sunak is on about.
Aye, that's his way of solving things down that road. 900 new beds. They've got a population of 55 million, for Christ's sake. They've got a waiting list of 7.9 million. 900 new beds. I'll let you take it for there, David.
Yeah, well, 900 beds, and you've got to figure those 900 beds require staff. And if they're not going to pay their staff, how are they going to get 900 beds with staff to actually serve the people? They're just going to make people lie in beds and die. Is that it? You know? I feel sorry for the people of England. They have been taken for a bloody ride all the time. And they just seem to accept the nonsense that comes out of Tory mouths regarding the NHS.
Yeah,
you know, 900 new beds. Oh, bloody hell. Rishi Sunak, you are a little swine. You really are. You need toppling. You need a security firm to actually go in and remove him forcibly from number 10. Get out the door, and don't ever come back.
Yeah, we've got a wee bit more of that further on in the report. Let's move on to number 4 on our list. The new report for a Scottish Independent Living Coalition says disabled people are increasingly having to choose between heating and breathing.
Yeah, I mean that.
Not even heating and eating, but heating and breathing.
Yeah, it's to do with disabled people having apparatus in the house that plugs into the mains and produces oxygen, rather than having an oxygen bottle handed to somebody that's suffering with I forget what it's called, where your breathing is affected. Nowadays, what they do is they get a device, a piece of apparatus that they plug in.
Start again, David. You dropped off again.
Are you right? Okay. To explain the heating or breathing, this is to cover disabled people that perhaps have a piece of apparatus that they plug into the wall and it produces oxygen for them out of the air, rather than having a bottle of oxygen delivered, right? And it means that they've got emphysema. If they've got emphysema, they can actually use it and just get oxygen all the time. It maybe gets up to like 60% oxygen or whatever, right? And they can't do it. These people are going to die. They're going to die just because of the cost of living crisis. Or are they going to be called in to use the 900 beds? But Rishi Sunak has decided to implement suddenly whoosh out the air, you know. Oh, dear, save me.
So I mean, it's horrific, David. Absolutely horrific.
Well, it's a case of here we go again. Now we're heading into the back end of the year, right? We're only a couple of months away from it starting to get a bit cooler, a bit colder, right? Could all of a sudden get a blooming batch snap, a really, really cold snap. And I'm going to have to contact the police again about, talking to the police about old age pensioners. It's not
again, that's right, David, right?
It's not a case of not being able to afford to pay the heating bill. It's the fact that they're scared. They're scared to do it. Yeah. And you'll find that the majority of old age pensioners, they are absolutely spot on when it comes to paying their bills, and they won't eat, they won't heat, they won't do anything if they can't afford to pay certain bills, and that's what it's coming down to. And that's what kills people.
And apparently, the machine you're talking about, David, is called an oxygen concentrator.
That's the one. It was in the back of my head. I knew it was there somewhere, but I'm kidding.
I didn't know what the machine was called at all, to be honest with you. I mean, it's just horrifying. The fact that people are actually choosing between heating and breathing.
Yeah, exactly right.
That's just these people's electricity bill should be paid on prescription.
I know that.
Right, of course, and we had some good news apparently for the UK, and that was that the headline inflation rate dropped from 7.9 to 6.8. Underlying inflation rate, if we throw in food inflation and things like that, is still 10% for your ordinary Joe in the street, and about 14% for the poorest among us. The headline rate of 6.88%.
But the headline rate means nothing, doesn't it?
The Tories are claiming this is their plan working, but actually, when the economists are saying actually it's down to a drop in oil and gas prices, and a drop in food prices internationally, which seems all very strange to me, because the George figures have just said that oil and gas prices, but we're not in oil and gas prices being high is the reason why Scotland's got less of a deficit. But as you pointed out, some of the Saudi states, their deficits have come down, and all because of oil and gas prices. But it shows you how poor statistics are, really. But it's saying they've come down by 6.8%. It should be riding a wee bit about, but it should still be up there about 7.9, maybe a wee bit higher if the checks that were supposed to come in October hadn't been kicked into the long grass again. Because even though this inflation rate is still dropping at the moment, we do know that there's inflationary pressures coming. let's face it, the World Trade Organisation is eventually going to take action.
Yeah, yeah.
You know?
To give you a wee bit of meat in the bones as to how the present numbering system came about, retail price index was what we used to use. And the first month of the Tory and Lib Dem coalition in 2010, that's when Osborne brought in CPI, Consumer Price Index, which meant the inflation figure dropped considerably and it stayed down there. And now we've got a situation where, still using the CPI, it's still gone up to a point where, well, you know, it's stupid, right? So there you go.
Aye. So, to say, the other thing we have to note about inflation, folks, when it comes to ordinary Joe on the street, inflation affects us all a wee bit differently. But it doesn't mean that things are getting cheaper, like the government's claiming. It just means the prices are not rising as quickly. You're still going to feel the hit in your pocket.
Yeah. The better off you are, the less effect it is. The poorer you are, the heavier inflation that you'll find, because you're going for products at the bottom end of the market, which tend to be more expensive for what they are. Yeah.
The other thing is, with this carry on, is the Tories have jumped on it to say that this is the reason why they're not giving inflation bust pay rises to public servants. We know that wages have got very little effect on inflation at this point in time. You know, it's global pressures, according to what we're being told. Oil and gas prices, war in Ukraine, stability not being there in the energy markets. It's a lot of fish. But if they're talking about inflation dropping because oil and gas prices have dropped, oil and gas prices are on their way back up again. Because if we have a look at oil and gas futures, they're up quite high. You
know? Anyway, the inflation, same old story. They're saying it's come down. Depends on what you buy as to how inflation affects you. All I can say is, if you look round at people's housing, that's where a large amount of inflation is happening. And it doesn't matter whether you've got a mortgage or you've got a rented house. And it's just been put out this morning that in the UK, the number of renters outstrips the number of mortgage holders. Yeah, okay. And if you are in a situation where somebody's got your house as a buy-to-let and they rented it to you, well, if their mortgage is going up, your rent's going up. They're going to have no choice. Simple as that, right?
So as I say, inflation's still hitting the least of us the hardest.
Yeah. I mean, David, what do you think about the Bank of England are still going to go for it, and we're looking at next month and putting up the
they're going to put the rates up again, but that's because they're fighting their own banks.
Yes.
As we now know, 13 of the biggest lenders, mortgage lenders, are actually dropping the rates.
Yeah. There's only so much they can go.
Yep.
You read in about these mortgage lenders, there's so much profit in the job for them, right? They'll go down so far, and then they've got to continue going up the way.
Up the way again, that's right. Right, well, it would appear. Let's move on to the next one, and it's two-child cap effect kicks in.
Yeah.
Now, that's the headline, two-child cap effect kicks in. And what this is going to do is the rate of births in England and Wales has dropped to a 20-year low. Now, the two-child cap was introduced, 10 years ago or something like that?
I think it was. Ruth Davidson, I seem to remember, had quite a lot to say on the subject, yeah?
That's right, on the two-child cap and the rate push, because she used to get it ripped out her in the Parliament, the Scottish Parliament, by Labour and the SNP. Now, basically, what's happening with the two-child cap, folks, for the uninitiated in this stuff, it's a bit like China in the 1980s when they introduced the one-child cap. Now, the benefit cap at own two children, or if you've got a third child, you need to prove it was conceived by rape.
Mm-hmm.
Well, basically, people own low and unstable incomes who could end up owning our benefits, they're not having any more than 2 kids.
Yeah.
So it's just population control. And this is a decade on. The amount of births in England and Wales have dropped. Now, this will affect Scotland as well, folks, because the cap applies in Scotland as well. Because that particular universal credit is still a reserve benefit. You know, we try our best to lift families out of poverty with the £25 a week uplift to child benefits, but there's only so much you can mitigate on a fixed budget. But this is definitely a sign of a population control measures put in place when the 2-child cap was introduced are actually starting to work.
And I understand that Mr. Starmer, or Sir Starmer, is not going to do a damn thing about it.
No,
what he's saying is he's going to try and make it fairer somehow. And everybody's looking at him going, well, are you going to take it away or are you going to leave it in place? And at the moment he's saying he's going to leave it in place.
How do you make it fairer? Do you let people on the lowest incomes have 3 children and benefits, but if you get to mid-income, then you're only allowed to have 2 children on any universal credit you get?
Right.
It's just nuts.
Yeah.
I mean, this is definitely a sign of this policy of a population control via benefit caps is working.
Yeah.
If you're in unstable employment in the gig economy, where you might be dropping in and out of benefits, you're definitely not having any more than 2 kids.
Yeah.
So that's population control by the back door, folks. It just slipped through. Nobody noticed that it was China in 1980.
Yeah, it was at that time they were offering the woman to become infertile. They got an operation, I forget what it's called, and they were offering them a transistor radio. You know, the wee tranny radio with a 9-volt battery. That's what they got if they did that, you know. And it's like, oh my goodness me.
So anyway, it appears that the 2-child cap has started to kick in, and the birth rate in England and Wales is that. We'll wait in the stats coming out of Scotland. I'm sure it'll mirror the same as the UK. But here's the thing: we've got an aging demographic. We now have failing populations, and yet we've got 200,000 people languishing in the asylum.
Sorry to disturb you, right? Can you please just get rid of Wayne?
Can I see him? I don't know how he's doing it.
Right, okay. Well, Chris Wilson's just put up a Wayne, are you still shooting up there? Have you no sight of him whatsoever?
No, and to be fair, I have been ignoring people's replies to his comments because it's the same crap he always comes away with.
I know that. Right.
You know, so and after the spat I had last week with one of the viewers, who, believe it or not, has been tangling back and forward with me for years on my timeline. So people might have thought I was having a go at some random fella. It's not something I've been arguing with for the last decade. Right, but so no, I can't see him. I don't know how he's doing it.
Yeah, he's. I really don't know. But
we'll need to find out about moderators so we can get a moderator in here. No. Right, thanks. Somebody's kicked him. Well, I've already blocked him, but whether that means he can still go on and rattle away, I don't know. Right, where are we? I say. Latest polling shows support for Indy still roughly 50-50. YouGov poll, with those we're taking out, it's basically roughly 48 for yes and 50 for no, apparently.
Said it once, I'll say it again many times before we actually have plebiscite or whatever, right? Number one, polls will never, ever, ever show anything but a marginal increase above 50, right?
The other thing is, if you look at it, the reason why we're still saying 50.
Will you let me finish? All right, the British establishment don't want those polls going any further than 52, 53, 54%, that sort of thing, right? We haven't started a proper, real campaign, okay? We know that. We are SNP members. The proper campaign for a ballot box election of some kind hasn't started. So therefore, the figures are never going to get a chance to go above the 50-50 bit, right? When it does happen, I'll tell you what, you'll see it going up and up and up.
And well, anyway, because of the modern era in any of these polls, it's just still basically 50-50.
It's in any poll, you can actually ask the pollster to, is it 1ABC? Is that the people you're going after? They'll tend to give you a low independence vote. Yeah, these people are the business owners, that sort of thing, right? Captains of industry, if you like.
Aye.
Pricks. Anyway.
So basically, there's not really changed, is there? Yeah.
The only time you're going to see it is if we have a general election, run it as a plebiscite, and SNP come rolling in with a good number of seats, certainly above 30, right?
Yep.
And that means we've won. And Scotland is independent, all bar the shouting.
And as we know, Labour are throwing a lot of money at Scotland for this next election. The Labour are moving to their Bath Street offices. Apparently, they're moving to a bigger location in the city, and Starmer's need them £1 million to target 25 seats up here. Yeah. So we're going to see Labour going to full swing.
Yeah.
Labour
will use every dirty book in every dirty twist in the book, because they did it on the run up to 2014. It was dreadful. It was really, really, really dishonourable stuff.
Aye, with the pensioners and things like that, and their pensions, of course, it was dishonourable stuff.
Labour did the running for blooming Tories, and at the end of it, after they won the referendum, right, they were high-fiving their pals in the Tory party. That's what you've all got to remember. These
get
a single vote in Scotland, right?
Bobby's there in Cyprus. Make sure you get a factor 50, Bobby. In fact, you better make it factor 100. Just put a sheet over yourself, man.
Yeah, bro.
Let's move on to polls showing us new information. Steve Bartley's former aide calls for NHS school privatisation.
And Steve Bartley goes, shh, don't say that.
Leon Emerald, a former media aide to the health minister down that road, says they should privatise the NHS. Steve Bartley, the health minister, tried to distance himself from the statement, despite the fact that last week he told us he was going full pelt to utilise the private sector to cut NHS waiting lists in England.
I think they make up the rules day to day. In truth, that's it. There's no continuity of message that goes on.
No,
Steve Bartley.
I'm going to put this one up because the person here is quite right, and you're right, Paul McMillan. But independent media, and I've been watching the independent media and some of the stuff coming out of the trade unions. You're absolutely right. They are short of money, but they are getting about £1 million to Scottish Labour. And they are short of people to campaign, because as they shed the left, that's what we were talking about on that a couple of programmes about with John McTernan having to point out to Starmer. You've just lost everybody that campaigns for you because you've kicked the left out the party.
But not only that, what's the reason why they've not got enough money? Memberships.
Memberships are we doing? 500,000 under Corbyn to 130,000 now.
Jim, it's orange squash. Anyway.
So, right, as I say, but the health minister, he tried to distance himself here when last week he was telling us just before his gaffer Sunak comes back from America, where no doubt he was talking to the health industry again in his luxury mansion.
Yeah.
He was shouting last week about utilising the private sector to bring down waiting lists in NHS England. Now, what's interesting about that is...
Hang on, David. Roddy, super chat, £20. Thank you, Roddy. Thank you very much. Are any of you going to the SNP thing in Dumfries this month?
No, we're in regional ones.
Yeah, I've no plans to do that, Roddy. But thank you for your donation. Thank you very much, sir. Sorry, David. Please carry on.
Oh, sorry, sir. I'll put it up because he gave me supercharged. Thanks very much. That's very generous. No, there's a couple of people from the Indy 2 Cafe will be going. Lorna McDonald, Neil McDonald will be going. They live in that area. Yeah. So David and I will probably be attending a couple of things that are happening here in the Central Belt.
Yeah.
I'll probably be going to Moraine Regional Assembly where we're supposed to be giving our ideas moving forward in independence. And a wee bit later on we talk sort of something's wrong with TUG. All right.
Definitely we'll both be attending the Chain of Freedom.
Yeah.
We'll both sign. Just to explain that, you have to go into the Chain of Freedom group and sign up.
And there's a couple of clone accounts out there trying to stop people from signing up to the Chain of Freedom. So watch what you're doing, folks.
Yeah.
Right, anyway, so that covers NHS privatisation. It's still going hell for leather down that road, and as you know, folks, they're coming for us.
Yeah.
Steve Barker's already said that he's coming up to sort out the NHS waiting list, SNP waiting list.
To be honest with you, if they manage to get through the plan with NHS in England, they get NHS Scotland by default. You know that, because we end up with no funding for NHS in Scotland. Yeah?
Yes, and Peter saying he's trying to get more people across the border. They haven't got capacity in NHS England. We do have cross-border cooperation, especially between certain cancer care, child care, all that. We have cross-border cooperation, and what they generally do is bill each other back for it.
There's nothing wrong with health professionals looking for a resource and seeing somebody just across the border, but it's only a 40-mile drive or something like that. Well, fair enough, and actually booking somebody in there. That's something that happens, and that's okay, and that is useful. However, we've got a Tory fascist government that really, really, really want an NHS Scotland as a wee bubble to actually sell off.
Aye, I mean, the Yanks don't want to revive just the English NHS, they want it all.
I know, yes. Correct.
Right, let's move on. Pete Wishart says every general election going forward should be de facto referendum on independence. And he wants it to be put in as party policy. Whom's is going to try and get it through the conference that the next general election will be a plebiscite. Let's hope we want to do it once. But what Pete's saying is we should change party policy and put it into the SNP policy, make it constant SNP policy that every general election going forward should be a de facto referendum. Now, why general election? Because the 1998 Scotland Act and the Supreme Court ruling. So,
I don't like this phrase, de facto. I prefer plebiscite.
I
don't know about anybody else.
That was the headline, David, said de facto.
Yeah, I know. It seems to me that we say plebiscite, the unionists use the word de facto all the time. And it's, to me, it lacks any relevance,
Aye. But I don't see a problem with it. In fact, I quite like Ash Regan's idea, believe it or not. Make every election going forward about it and call it the voter empowerment mechanism.
Yeah.
Meaning that every single vote going forward, the voters are empowered to decide Scotland's future in it.
Agreed. Absolutely.
But I don't think we need any more one go at it, because the polls are still showing the SNP taking 38, 39 seats down that road.
I think so long as people use common sense and realise that the international community, the Westminster are not going to go, oh, you won, guys, so therefore that's fine. No, they're not. We win that Scottish part of the general election. Westminster are going to be up in arms, really, and go, no, we're not accepting that. It's only the international community's recognition of Scotland as an independent nation that will work. And to do that, we need one party, one single party elected with a maximum number of MPs for it to be recognised. And unfortunately, the only party that we've got that can do that is the SNP. And I'll tell you what, if you're Alba or wherever, right, you want independence, hold your nose, vote for the SNP on that blooming general election. Otherwise, you're throwing your chances away.
Aye, well, as I say, that's what he wants. He wants it, and the reason why he's saying Westminster elections is because of the Supreme Court ruling in the 1998 Scotland Act. So he's saying make every general election going forward. I don't think we're going to need any more than this one general election.
We won't, so long as we're...
Because, as we know, Norway and Sweden...
Yeah.
Norway and Iceland have got a race.
Norway and Iceland.
But the thing is, once Norway recognises us, that's going to have a big influence on other places in the world because their sovereign wealth fund has got great influence throughout the world.
Yes. Yep.
And we've got Phil McCracken, that cracks me up every time.
Don't go there, please.
I'm not going. Thanks for the super chat. Keep doing what you are doing, Davies. Really proud of your food bank thing. Yep. Even though they shouldn't exist. Thank you.
Yeah.
Wow. I'll wind you up.
Yeah, Michael Harrison, £30.99 or $30 Australian dollars. That's
Australian dollars, aye.
Yep.
Super chat, $30.99 Australian dollars. Sorry, Davies, I'm in Australia. Can you guys explain how this plebiscite will work? What's required and what will change? Excuse my ignorance. No, we can explain that to you very simply.
Yeah, do you want me to do it, David? It's very, very straightforward. Normally, a general election, Westminster general election, everybody goes to polls, votes Labour, Conservative, SNP, Lib Dem, whatever, right? This time, what we're going to do is, because we are not able to run a referendum due to the findings or the decision by the Supreme Court that says, no, you can't, what we're going to do is we need to get the ballot boxes out of their cupboards. So therefore we've chosen, we are choosing the Westminster general election, which should happen in the early part of next year. Right? And providing that we make it a single issue election for Scotland. So in other words, the SNP or whomever puts up that if you vote for us, and we win the Scottish general election, so in other words, put the maximum number of MPs in place in Westminster, above 30 certainly, then that means that Scotland will have won, and that means that because it's a single issue general election, a single issue plebiscite as we call it, that means that Scotland would have gained its independence through a vote. Just the same as if it was a referendum. However, because Westminster is a first past the post setup where the Tories in 2019 all those MPs by just 41% of the vote. And for example, Tony Blair, his landslide election, he got all those MPs through 35% of the vote. So therefore, it doesn't matter. It's not like a referendum where we need 50% and above. We don't require that. We just require the maximum number of MPs for our country. Yes. I hope that explains it for you.
The people will be voting on a single issue and the people will have spoken.
Yeah.
Right. So that's what Pete wants. We'll see what happens. And moving on, the SNP's largest affiliate group, the Trade Union Group, which has 13,000 SNP members in it, are to hold a meeting on the 26th of August in Glasgow to discuss the strategy going forward to independence, which is just like the regional assemblies that are being set up. So if you are an SNP member, this is open to you, whether a member of the trade union, SNP trade union group or no. Now, the thing is, They've announced a date, but I haven't seen a venue there anywhere yet. So if anybody knows where the venue is going to be, stick it in the comments, will you?
Please, please.
David and I are betas will try and go along to this one as well. But we'll see how it goes. But as I say, they'll be having this meeting a couple of days before the agenda for the conference comes out. But it looks as if what's going to be put in front of the conference is a vote on whether or not to use the next general election as that plebiscite election. Right.
We think that Hamza is pushing things that way, and we hope he is, right, because of what he said previously. However, we've got to understand that there's going to be a lot of people that might go, no, we don't want this. We want it as a Scottish election. To be honest with you, I want it as quick as possible. And it seems to me the Westminster general election is the quickest and easiest way to do it.
Aye.
You know.
But anyway, the trade union group are going to have a convention on the route forward in Glasgow on the 26th. No doubt they'll be taking their influence to conference because they're a big affiliate group.
Yeah.
So they'll be taking their influence to conference, and we'll all be wanting to put forward ideas. That's the idea of the regional assemblies.
Yeah.
But as I say, whatever they decide to put in the agenda for the conference, I would imagine that the voter empowerment mechanism will be there. I'm sure that there'll be a vote on whether or not to change party policy to make every Westminster election going forward about Scottish independence. And I would imagine that Humza's idea of the next UK election being used as a plebiscite, where when a majority of MPs in Scotland declare and have a look to see if the international community is going to recognise you or not. Right, I imagine that will be the three things that will be put forward when it comes to the route forward for independence at the conference when the conference comes up.
Can I suggest something? That David and I will both be endeavouring to get to this particular meeting on the 26th of August. And if you are someone that comes on to the channel to see what we say, if you do get a chance, come and say hello to us, all right? Because it may be important that we actually act as a group. Okay?
I don't know when David's gone on holiday again, Lauren. They want rid of you again, David, so I can go off and rant somewhere.
Whatever. Right.
Right, listen, we've got 3 minutes left, so let's lighten the mood a wee bit for the last 3 minutes, and that's it's 50-50 on whether Wales is going to win an independence referendum next year, apparently.
Yeah.
The population split 50-50 on whether to hold a referendum on in Welsh independence next year. Now, the polls show if they had that referendum next year, if there wasn't a bigger swing, but support for Welsh independence is up to 33%. Against 54%. There's a bit of don't knows in there, but no enough to swing it in yes favour. But believe it or not, the people actually want the question asked.
Yeah. And I do know for a fact that down there, it's like the indie thing is becoming as active as it was in the run-up to the 2014 referendum for us. So really, that's wonderful to see. And I really do wish them all.
I'm a bit worried for Westminster, because there's a two-pronged attack coming up here. We're definitely going to be having that plebiscite election.
Yeah.
And New Wales is talking about a referendum.
Yeah.
And that could be post that election.
Yeah.
We could already be on our way out the door, and that could be the thing that would swing Wales to the point of, you know what, let's just join Scotland and Ireland and get shot of this bunch of idiots. I mean, the Welsh first and the Gers can't look any better today than the Roars Day.
Yeah.
Funny how there's no expenditure and revenue in England anywhere, eh?
Yeah.
But of course, that's because it would horrify the people of England to realise how bloody poor they are. But no, I think, listen, they even though the majority would vote no, it's still 50-50 on wanting that referendum next year. I just find that interesting. I thought that people would ever like to hear it. And we know that Cornwall wants away from England as well.
Well, I watched this guy on Sky News, the wee guy that was the general or whatever, right? Explaining the Russian movements and the Ukrainian movements and all the rest of it, right? and I look at that bit of the countryside between Scotland and North Wales, and I think, well, that's Liverpool. We could get Liverpool if we actually took Liverpool. The people in Liverpool would love it, right?
Well, listen, why don't we just take back the Locham Rye and we'll go for Cornwall, right up.
Yeah.
No, we'll just go Cornwall, Wales, Liverpool, Cumbria,
Yeah.
and just leave the rest.
Yeah.
Although Northumberland might want to stay in that, because last time we went for that referendum, Northumberland and Cumbria wanted to come with us.
Yeah. And I know that Doncaster, the mayor of Doncaster, he said
he's still doing
to be a part of Scotland.
Aye.
You know.
And Doncaster was coming tea. That is funny. Hey, all of a sudden the walls in Doncaster when they need passport controls. Oh no, we're keeping the common travel area, aren't we?
There's a lot to sort and settle out once we become independent. And the big argument is about the common travel area, and I watch that all the time, and I just keep on thinking, no, I want a 17-foot border fence or wall right across the border, because any country has to control the movement of people both in and out.
Don't Westminster.
Don't want to be bad about it. Don't want to be hard about it. Right? In actual fact, we would like to use modern systems and make it like Canada and America, Vancouver.
What's left of Gamelland.
Yeah, they're just flying through, right? So that's fine. But no, I'll tell you what, I like the idea of, see where that big welcome to Scotland is. You drive up the M74, right? And you go there. I want to see the booths all the way across there.
And Andrew wants to super chat. Good show, guys. # Scots annex Northern Ireland. Nah, you can keep them. But you know, it's just interesting that even though if they have that referendum next year, they would lose, apparently according to the polls, the people still want to have it. And I just thought that was interesting. Right, David, we're rules up, and I need to go. I start work shortly.
Okay.
As you know, I've got a wee busy night in front of me. So.
And to the people that watch this, you've all done very well.
Well, listen, the viewing figures are great. Right now we've got 217 people watching live. The majority are on YouTube right now, you know. But they're good live viewing figures for any program on YouTube, you know. And the last video was over 2,000 views on Facebook. That's all brilliant. Well, of course, I had a few rants last time, and people like that.
Right. Well, I just go on permanent holiday and let you get on with it.
And Chris, a wee bit of good news for Indie Live Radio. No swearing this time, so no need to edit anything.
Yeah, well, maybe one or two wee bits. But
I don't remember any, but hey, that's the way it goes. Anyway, let's round this up.
Yep. Please, if you haven't subscribed to us, please do, because subscriptions help us gain more things from YouTube or whatever, right? Also, if you like what we did, just hit the like key. Go on, it takes no time. Just hit the like key, and that also helps us. And if you like what we did, we are the Two Davies, right? This might be one of the Two Davies on holiday, but therefore we're still the Two Davies. Now, if you really did like us, then fine. But if you didn't like us, well, what can I say? You've got a choice. We could be the people that make up the girls' figures.
That's enough of that crap. I just lose one thing left today, David.
Bye, Davey.
Bye, Davey.
Bye.
Bye, guys. See you on Monday, 2 o'clock.
Hey, I've got an idea. Just before you do, right? High five. High five me. Go on. No, I'm
It's not working.